Hello, it's Nadine here, and I'm here for this week's episode of Life, Health, and the Universe. And I'm here, and I forgot to ask you how you pronounce your surname.
It's Rusbatch.
Rusbatch, Sarah Rusbatch. I wasn't sure whether it was a Rue or a Russ. Sarah Rusbatch. Welcome, Sarah. So, Sarah, let me do a quick intro of you, and then you can do an intro of yourself. This is how we roll here. So Sarah, she's a certified women's health and well-being coach. You're an accredited grey area drinking coach and a keynote speaker sharing your journey to sobriety and the impact of alcohol on mental health. Seems to me like you're a woman on a mission. You've got a massive heart from what I've seen on social media and what I know about you and the work that you do. And I'm super excited about this conversation because I just think that the information that you're sharing, the journey that you've been on, the journey that you're taking others on just needs to be heard by more people. Like, it's the 21st century, but like things just don't seem to be changing fast enough, right? We're stuck in some silly old ways. Anyway, that's me having a little mini rant. Tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get stuck into some pretty juicy topics.
Yeah. So like you said, I'm an accredited grey area drinking coach. I'm from the UK and I moved to Australia 2010. I'm married. I've got two kids who are 11 and 12, and becoming a mum was, is pivotal to everything we're going to talk about today, because it's the reason that my drinking became fairly dysfunctional, and it's the reason I stopped drinking. So it kind of took me on a bit of a journey of self-discovery for myself as well. And what I'm so passionate about now is supporting women to understand that they have options. Because I don't know about you, Nadine, but when I was growing up, it was never a question as to whether or not I would drink alcohol. It was just a matter of when and how I could do it without my parents knowing. And alcohol is so prevalent in society. And my mission is not to demonize alcohol. My mission is not to say you must never drink alcohol, but it's to share some of the facts about alcohol. And it's to share that a life without alcohol is not what we're led to believe.
Yeah, totally. I totally get that. And I'm very much on the same page as you, because I was just regular drinker. I'd never considered myself having a drinking problem, but I drank very consistently, even though I work in the health and fitness industry. And it was almost like a badge of honor that I could do all of the things and still have a drink at night and get away with it,
Yeah.
But it's been a real thorn in my side because I know from a health perspective how bad it is. But it was a real challenge, and I stopped drinking almost a year ago.
Awesome.
So yeah. But let's start by talking about grey area drinking, because I don't think that people know a lot about it, and it's really interesting. Without you're the professional, you know all of these things, but really interesting how we have these kind of aspirations to be that person who doesn't drink, but then we come up with all the reasons why we do drink. Like, we have fun, it's social, like I really enjoy it, I love the taste, whatever it may be. And I guess that's kind of what that grey area drinking is. Would you agree?
Yeah. So I tend to describe it as thinking about your drinking as being on a scale of 1 to 10. So 1 is someone who either doesn't drink or maybe has a glass of champagne at a wedding to toast the bride and groom. And other than that, the alcohol just doesn't even feature in their life whatsoever. 10 is someone who has end stage physical dependency on alcohol. And what I mean by that is they need to have medical support to stop drinking, because if they were to suddenly go cold turkey, they would die. Because it's important to note here that alcohol is one of only 3 substances that the human body can die from withdrawal from. And alcohol, if people are at that end stage physical dependency, they mustn't just stop. They have to have medical support. So 1 out of 10, they are quite extreme levels, right? And not many people sit there. I think we start to get into the grey area about 5, and I would say 5 to an 8 on that scale is where grey area drinking sits. So we haven't got to the point perhaps where we are physically dependent, you know, and this is why the term alcoholic is so outdated, because if you use the term alcoholic, you're either saying I'm an alcoholic or I'm not. And most people don't identify as being an alcoholic, because we have the stereotype that an alcoholic is a homeless person who sleeps on a park bench, who has the shakes every single morning, that starts drinking at 9 a.m. And if we don't do any of those things, then there's no label for us. And so therefore we go, oh, I'm okay. But the problem is that most of us are not okay. We could be drinking, binge drinking heavily. We could be drinking, you know, at a really significant level that's impacting our mental health and our physical health, but we're not giving ourselves the label alcoholic. So what are we? And that's where grey area drinking is so helpful, to be able to give people a term to use that isn't alcoholic, but nor is it I'm an okay average social drinker. It's what's in the middle of those.
And yeah, so is that what you do? You get people to because you're a coach, right? So when you're coaching someone in grey area drinking, and obviously to the path, is it because they're on a path of sobriety, because they want to stop drinking, or just to understand more about it?
So I'll give you some classic signs of a grey area drinker.
Okay.
A grey area drinker is someone who makes rules around their drinking. So I don't know about you, but I had constant rules, because the fact is that people that don't have a problem with alcohol don't make rules about alcohol. They just drink when they feel like it, and they don't drink otherwise. People like me live by the rules and often break them. So my rules involved, I don't drink Monday and Tuesday. I don't drink before 5 p.m. I don't drink on my own. I don't drink at lunchtime unless it's with other people. I don't drink white wine on an empty stomach. Like, I had all of these rules, but I constantly broke them. Some of the other signs of grey area drinking is we intend to only have 1 or 2, but we have more. We wake up with the alcohol has started to impact us physically. And one of the first signs for many women, particularly after we hit the age of 40, is sleep. So we find that when we drink, we will wake up about 2, 3 a.m. We might be having anxiety. We might be having a hot flush. We find it really hard to get back to sleep. We're very restless. We lie in bed going, oh my God, I can't believe I'm hungover again. I said I wasn't going to drink last night. Here I am again, right? I'm definitely not drinking tonight. I'm definitely taking a few days off. And then by 5 o'clock, we're pouring a glass of wine. Like, that was my life on repeat. And if we want to change our drinking, but we're struggling to do so, that's a classic sign of a grey area drinker. Or the other sign of a grey area drinker is someone who takes breaks. They might be able to do a Feb fast. They might be able to do a dry July. But that almost lulls them into a false sense of security, because they go, oh, well, I've taken a month off, so therefore I can't have a problem, because people that have a problem can't just stop for a month like that. So therefore I'm okay. But when they go back to drinking, their drinking goes back to being the same or more than it was before. And then they're in that constant cycle. So those are some of the signs and areas of grey area drinking that I focus on. And I say to most of my clients that once we become a grey area drinker, it's very unlikely that we would then just become someone who has a glass of wine every now and then with a Sunday roast and doesn't think about alcohol in between. Like, I just haven't ever seen that happen for anyone. So my whole work that I do is helping people change their entire mindset around alcohol, so that they're not feeling like they're missing out on anything by not drinking, but they're actually looking at everything that they're gaining by not drinking.
Yeah. Well, I was definitely a grey area drinker then.
I bet most of your listeners listening to this might be ticking a few of those boxes too.
Yeah. I think that it's really interesting. It's almost like it sets you on a path when you wake up in the morning and you're like, right, that's it. I'm not going to drink today. And it's almost like the decision's been made, right? You've started thinking about it as soon as you get up.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And do you know, it makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable to say that I had a problem with drinking. Do you know what I mean? Because it's so socially acceptable to be in that cycle, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's so stigmatized to confess to having a problem.
Yes. Yeah. And I've actually had times when I've said to people, oh, just want to stop drinking, and they're like, don't be so hard on yourself.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, when I first stopped, I would say, oh, I'm not drinking for a while, and people would go, oh, let's catch up when you're drinking again. Like, it's one of the only drugs we have to justify not taking, right? Or don't be so boring, just have one. You know, and when we actually dig deep and start to really understand some of the facts about alcohol, it's incredible that we have it on this pedestal of all the ways that it enhances our life without actually talking about some of the things that it's actually destroying in our lives.
Yeah, it's pretty full on. And like, I take my hat off to you, like, with the way that you educate people, because as you said, you're not demonizing alcohol. You're not trying to make people feel bad about it, but knowledge is power, right? And you can make some better choices and some better decisions about whether you do or don't when you know the facts.
Exactly.
Tell us, if you don't mind, a little bit about your own story. So like, what was happening? You talked about like your kids and like how that was kind of a trigger to a bit of an unraveling, but also the epiphany, perhaps, and the change. Yeah, so tell us a little bit about all of that, and like, what was the turning point for you?
Yeah. So I grew up in the north of England, and you know, in the 90s, an era where it was girl power. It was girls can do the same as the boys. Many of our role models back then were women that were, you know, drinking with the lads and matching the boys pint for pint. And so I started drinking at a young age, as most people around my area did. At 14, 15 years old, we would fill up soda stream bottles with Cinzano and go down the local park and snog the local boys. And that was kind of my initiation into teenage years. And that was when I discovered alcohol, and I liked it. I liked how it made me feel. I wasn't an anxious person, but I loved what I craved was connection. And looking back on this is all stuff that I've unpacked over, you know, the last few years. But what I craved was connection. And what I loved about alcohol was it fast forwarded connection. You know how like after a few drinks, you're like, you're my best friend, I love you. And you're telling everyone all your secrets. Like, I loved that. I'm a girl's girl. And I love the kind of the quick and the speed up process of feeling really close to someone, even though it's not potentially authentic when you're a bottle of wine in. But that didn't matter to me at the moment. That was what I loved. So I went to uni, big drinking culture, moved to London, huge drinking culture, but never really associated my drinking as being problematic. It was something I did socially. Yes, I socialized a lot, but I drank in the same way that many people around me did. I wasn't at home drinking on my own. It was something that I did for fun. So then I met my husband, we got married and decided to move to Australia. And it was a kind of catalyst of a lot of things that all happened at once, which was I'd had a big successful career that I absolutely loved, and I got a lot out of it. And so I wasn't working. I had a second child very quickly after my first. So I had 2 under 2, no job, moved to Australia, no friends, no family, no support, at home with 2 babies all day when my husband was setting up a new business. And I was lonely, I was homesick, I was lost, I was confused, I was scared of my feelings because I was struggling to love motherhood as much as I wanted to. I found it a little bit monotonous being at home and doing the baby rhyme time and doing all of those things. And I missed work, and I missed getting dressed up, and I missed seeing people because I didn't have any friends. And, you know, going back to what I said before, I love connection. So alcohol became a crutch, because what alcohol is really good at in the moment is making all uncomfortable emotions go away. And so I didn't know how to sit with emotions, because I'm sure, like you and many of your listeners, it wasn't taught to me at school. And so uncomfortable emotions were something to be avoided and distracted from at all costs. And alcohol is very good at doing that. So bring in the alcohol, and it was something that I started looking forward to every day. 5 o'clock, I can have my wine. My husband would sometimes see me. He would turn into the street, and I'd be standing at the end of the driveway with a baby in one arm, a toddler at my feet, tears streaming down my face, just waiting for him to get home so I could hand him the children and go inside and drink my wine. And that continued for quite a few years. But I still had my rules. If I don't drink on a Monday and Tuesday, I would white knuckle Monday and Tuesdays, because that told me I'm not an alcoholic because I don't drink for those 2 days. My anxiety got really bad, because it turns out alcohol causes anxiety rather than relieving it. I'd been to my GP. I said to her, I'm a mess. I'm crying all the time. I'm a shadow of myself. And at no point did she say to me, how much are you drinking? But did give me some anxiety medication. This was about 2 weeks before the event that kind of changed everything. I then had a friend's 40th, and it was a big boozy night. I drank a bottle of champagne before I even got there. I didn't eat anything. I was on a mission to get drunk. I'd gone outside for a cigarette, and I was wearing high heels. And as I crouched down to put out my cigarette, I fell forward, had no reflexes, landed on my face on a concrete driveway, split open my lip, smashed up my face, like cuts, bruises, everything. So my friend took me home and put me to bed. And I woke up the next morning to my 5-year-old daughter standing over the bed saying, Mummy, what happened to your face? And you know that moment where you just feel that sick and that dread, and it's like someone's punched you in the stomach. And I was so ashamed and so remorseful and so embarrassed, and I hated myself in that moment. I was just like, why have I done it again? I've made a complete dick of myself. I'm the most drunk person at every event I ever go to. I can't ever stop at just a few. I always have to be the most extreme. I didn't stop drinking that day. Interestingly, because those feelings were so strong, I remember that night actually drinking wine through a straw, because I couldn't actually put a glass to my lips because they were so cut, but I couldn't not have my alcohol. So I was drinking wine through a straw just to get the alcohol into my system to escape the feelings that I was having.
The edge off of it. Yeah.
Yeah. And 2 weeks later, I said to myself, I'm going to take a break. I'm going to do 21 days, because everyone says 21 days is what you have to do to change a habit, right? So I said, I'll do 21 days of no alcohol. And I ended up doing 100. And I couldn't believe what changed for me. Like, anxiety disappeared overnight. I was sleeping really well. I was happier. I was more positive. I was clear-headed. I was energized. It was like all of these things that I never associated with my drinking. I thought the way I felt every day was just normal. Turns out I was living my life at about a 4 out of 10, but I just didn't know it, because a 4 out of 10 had become my normality. And then it was like, oh my goodness, this is what it's like to feel 8 out of 10 every day. Oh my goodness, what have I been missing out on? So it was a real revelation for me. And then I got to the 100 days, and everyone had been saying to me, when are you going to drink again? How long till you drink again? And I was like, I need to get to my 100, and then I'm going to decide. But I hadn't done any deeper work on myself. And this was in 2017. So I said, that's it. I'm going to drink again, because, I mean, that would just be weird. I'm Sarah, the party girl. I can't not ever drink again. So I decided I'll just be fixed now. I'll be normal now, because I've taken 100 days off. So all of my problems with alcohol surely don't exist, because I've just done 100 days. So everything will be fine. Within 2 weeks, I was back to drinking the same amount as before. Because that's what happens with alcohol. A, it's highly addictive, and B, the neural pathways in our brain don't change, and they're there forever. And my neural pathways were incredibly embedded. By this point, there were 25 years of conditioning. When you're stressed, you must drink. When you feel angry, you must drink. When you feel sad, you must drink. Like, they were strong, and they were shouting at me all the time, when you feel this, you must drink. And as soon as we pick up one drink again, it's like they suddenly get lit up. They'd gone to sleep for a while, and I'd started to learn new methods and new ways of managing my stress and sitting with my emotions. But as soon as I picked up that drink, it was like they just woke up, and they were there all the time. So what followed for me was 2 years trying to take a break, not being able to moderate. And finally, 2019, set the date, had my last drink, and 3.5 years later, here we are.
Wow. It's really interesting that I've done a few, you know, all right, I won't drink during the week, and then I'll just drink on weekends, but inevitably over time it creeps back in. And I'm at a point now where, like, I did, similar to you, I did a 30 days in January, like, and then I was like, I'm just going to see if I can go to the next 30 days. And I just went like that. And I've kept a track of it. So we like patterns, right?
Yeah.
If we break the pattern, we go back to zero. We have to start all over again. I'm fearful of having a drink, because I'm worried that I wouldn't be able to stop again. And I don't want to break the pattern. So that's kind of, they're two good motivators for me.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's, gosh, there's so many so many things we could talk about. Yeah, it's really interesting. What was I going to say? All right. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes and I'm just like a whole bunch of things popped into my head. This happens. How did you become a grey area drinking coach? Like, there was obviously a point in time where you stopped drinking. Like, how long was it after you stopped drinking for the second time, since like that you became a coach or said, this is what I want to help other people do? And how do you get a qualification doing that?
So 2019, I stopped in April, and then I embarked on 6 months of really intense therapy. And I kind of went and unpacked a lot of stuff for myself that really helped me understand a lot more about myself, my triggers, the things that bothered me, and gave me some incredible tools for learning how to process emotions and not just avoid them, which is the heart of sobriety. And then it got to the end of 2019, early 2020, COVID hit. So of course I was working at that point with my own recruitment business, but because of COVID, all of the recruitment firms had hiring freezes. So I knew that there was going to be no recruitment happening for a while. And I'd become pretty disengaged from my job anyway. I knew I wanted to do something else, but I didn't know what it was. And then it just felt like all the support I had in my sobriety in terms of sober groups were in the UK, because it just wasn't a big movement here in Australia. There wasn't as many people talking about it. But I knew that there was curiosity for it, because I knew that a couple of people in my UK groups were from Australia. So I thought, well, imagine if I could do what some of these ladies in the UK are doing, but bring that over here to Australia. So I decided to retrain. I got my coaching accreditation in women's health and wellbeing. And prior to that, in recruitment, I'd been doing life coaching and career coaching with my clients anyway for 22 years. So it just felt like it was a natural progression. And then I worked with a lady in the States to get my grey area drinking accreditation. And then I launched the business. So I launched the business in January 21. And then in March 21, I was interviewed by Mamma Mia, the online women's news site in Australia. And they shared my story. And 7,000 women replied to me after reading my story.
Oh my God.
In a week, they all contacted me and they all said, you've just told my story. And that pretty much launched my business.
Wow. 7,000. Did you reply to every single one?
I wish I could say that I did, but that was how I then created my Facebook community.
Yes,
so I had a place for everyone to go to be able to connect and collaborate and share and support and encourage each other. And that's how the Women's Wellbeing Collective, I think at that point it had like about 1,000 members from people I knew in my communities. But that then exploded. I think we're up to 12,000 members now, and that's women all over the world who are just sharing, connecting, supporting, and talking about this journey together.
Wow. I want to talk a bit more about the Facebook group. I'm a member of your Facebook group. But before we do, I want to talk to you just like you said that you went to therapy and that was a big part of your sobriety process. How much do you think, because you've mentioned before, you kind of associate drinking with cutting off from your emotions, when you're depressed or when you're stressed, when you're this, when you're that, you take a drink. How much of that do you think happens for everyone, and how much is like that social conditioning side? Because we see our parents, like you and I both from the UK, it's kind of a cultural thing, right? People drink, like you said, you go down the park with your friends when you're a teenager. And what was mine? We had Malibu.
I never liked Malibu.
Straight Malibu. Well, I wouldn't go near it now.
Just the smell.
Just the smell. Oh dear. And it was like, drink it as fast as possible so you can get about doing all of the things. Yeah. So how much do you reckon is that social conditioning and just like everyone's doing it, so we do it? And then like, does it then start to transfer over into that emotional stuff, or is there always that emotional stuff? Like, we've all got some unpacking to do, right? That's what
Everybody. I don't think a
life's
single
like
person doesn't.
life's like a journey of figuring things out.
I think what happens though, Nadine, is I think that for women, we get into our 40s and 50s, and that's the majority of the women I work with are that age. And it's interesting actually, because an article in the ABC was talking about the demographics of people that drink the most, and nearly all demographic group is declining apart from middle-aged women, and middle-aged women, it's increasing. Which makes sense to me, because I heard Gabor Mate say recently that it's never been harder for a mother than it is today since the Second World War. Right. And I think there are several reasons for this. I think, and this isn't just about mothers, but I think for women in this era, we are often raising children. We might have aging parents who we're looking after. We're also working full-time or part-time or running our own business, but doing the lion's share of the sorting out of things at home, raising the kids, even just the mental load. Like my husband, goodness me, he's amazing when I give him jobs to do, but he doesn't think about what the jobs are. He just does what he's told, but it's not in his head. He's not in his head thinking, oh, when I'm at the supermarket, I should buy that birthday present for the kids' party that they've got on Saturday so that I don't have to come back another time. La, 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 la. Like my head has got so many open tabs and so much that I'm juggling. And on top of that, there's so much pressure on women to look good, to fit in the gym, to do their yoga, to do their meditation, to cook home-cooked meals, to make the kids' book club outfit for bloody book week. You know, like the pressure and the intensity is full on. And I read something the other day that said men are more likely to drink to enhance a good feeling. Women are more likely to drink to seek oblivion.
And it's tough when you have got all of that stuff going on, and the one thing that you feel like is for you is a glass of wine at the end of the day, right?
Totally. And the other thing, though, that I think it's really important to note is that so many of my ladies find it really hard to put themselves first. They have many of us have, as women, we feel like we have issues with self-worth, with self-esteem. And what alcohol does is it feels like it's something we can give ourselves whilst we're doing all the jobs. So we can do the ironing while drinking our wine. We can make the kids' lunches for the next day while we're drinking our wine. We can cook the dinners. We can run the bath. We can help with homework, and we can do all of that with our wine. Whereas if we want to do something else that takes us away from the hub of the family home, like we want to go and do a meditation, or we want to go to a yoga class, we feel guilty. Like so many of my clients really struggle to do that because the guilt is there. And what I have to help them get over is, you deserve this. You will be a better mother, a better wife, a better friend if you're taking time for yourself.
Yeah, totally. It also takes the edge off some of that mundane stuff that we get to do, right? It's like you can have a little bit of fun while you're doing
if I was pissed doing the ironing, like it might not have been the best job, but it made me a little bit happier.
Yeah, that's right. So do you reckon that it kind of morphs from, like, goes from the social conditioning and that's just what you do when you're a teenager kind of thing, and then it morphs into that, like, before we know it, we've got a problem with it kind of thing?
Yeah, I think that there's a few things on that. Number one, alcohol is addictive.
Right.
So let's not forget that. It's up there with the top 5 most addictive substances on the planet. So if you've become addicted to alcohol, there's nothing wrong with you. It's not your fault. And this is the issue that I have with big alcohol, with giving people the label alcoholic, because you're putting the onus on the person. You bad person, you've become addicted to alcohol. That's what we're designed to do, because alcohol's addictive. So the problem is not with the person, the problem is with the substance, right? So because it's addictive, secondly, we build tolerance to it. So what starts at the beginning with 1 or 2 glasses very quickly becomes a bottle, because we build tolerance. Our brain has to go through this incredible process to be able to manage the alcohol. So when we drink alcohol, alcohol's a depressant. We have neurotransmitters in our brain that our brain focuses and loves to be at this level that we call homeostasis. So that's when every single neurotransmitter in the brain is at the level it needs to be at. When we drink alcohol, it's a depressant. So it really, really upsets the balance of neurotransmitters, because it sets off and we become in that depressed state. So the alcohol actually causes the brain to release cortisol, to counter the impact of the alcohol. Cortisol is the stress hormone, and it also releases other hormones as well to counter the impact of the alcohol. So the problem is this: alcohol wears off, and it takes about 20 minutes, and we are still left with the impact of the excess cortisol and adrenaline and other hormones that the brain has released in response to the alcohol. So we can then feel a bit stressed and a bit anxious and a little bit out of sorts after the impact of the first glass has worn off. So then we want to have a second glass simply to get rid of the feeling that's actually been caused by having the first glass. And because our brain adapts so quickly and so incredibly to what we do, tolerance comes in because it knows exactly what to do after that first glass. And then before we know it, that first glass stops having the same impact. And then we want more and we want more and we want more. So yes, it starts off as something that's social for most people. And no, not everybody becomes addicted to alcohol. There are other things that play here, like genes do play a part, what age you were when you started drinking, but also the amount of stress that you have in your life and the amount of other resources that you have. And if you do have any underlying trauma or issues that haven't been resolved, then that does play a part as well.
Yeah. Wow. It's pretty intense, isn't it?
Yeah, it really is.
Do you generally have people that, well, you obviously wrote that article in Mamma Mia and had a lot of people that went, wow, that's my story as well. What do you think for you has the most impact? Is it you telling your story and telling and like educating, like going out and educating, or do people find you like through your Facebook group, through, you know, referrals and that sort of thing? What do you think has the biggest impact, or is it a bit of a combo?
I think it's a bit of a combo, but I do think it's the sharing of the story, because I'm not someone out there who's talking about this without the lived experience. I've been there. And I think that's why my ladies do relate to me so much, because I know it. And I give them hope, because I can sit there and go, I was where you are. I couldn't even get through. If I had to get through Monday and Tuesday without alcohol, that was a bloody great week for me if I managed to do that. So I know exactly what it's like to be where you are now. I'm 3.5 years in. I don't even think about it. So you can get there if you want to.
Yeah. The Facebook group. So I joined it, and I didn't actually know that it was it's the Women's Wellbeing Collective, right? I didn't know it was for well, what do you say? Grey area drinkers. I didn't know what it was. I'm a work in the health and fitness industry, and so I was looking for like-minded people, and I came across it, and I've stuck with it, and I've referred some people to it as well, and got them to join. There's some pretty heavy shit that's going on in there. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, that it's super supportive, but like when people do share their stories, do you feel an overwhelming sense of responsibility to help them? It must be pretty full on.
I do, but I also know that simply me providing this platform helps them. Yeah. And what I have to say to myself is I can't coach everyone one-to-one. I can't spend all of that time. There's 12,000 women in that community, but I'm helping them already by giving women a safe place to be able to share. Sometimes they're sharing their story for the first time, and simply just putting it down and then having the time to sit and write their story and share it, and then the feedback that they get from the other women, that's enough. Like that, they want to feel heard and they want to feel understood. Yeah. And so many of us don't. I've got a client who was turned away from 3 drug and alcohol rehab facilities because she wasn't drinking enough. She was at the point where she was seeking help from private rehab facilities and was being turned away because they said to her, you're not drinking enough to get our support.
To prove it.
But she was drinking between 1 and 2 bottles of wine a night. But she was high functioning. She was still holding down her job. She still had her kids. She still had her house. And it's kind of like, why are we not helping people before they get to the end stage? Yeah. Before they lose their job, their marriage, their home, their driving license? Why are we not trying to do why is there only me trying to do this? Like, that's what's so wrong with the system right now.
Yeah. Do you feel like you are quite like there's no one else doing it in Australia?
I think there's 5 women in Australia that are grey area drinking coaches.
Okay. Wow. What do you think of things like AA? Have you ever experienced them? Did you ever go to AA yourself?
I didn't go to AA because I didn't identify as being an alcoholic. And that's why I think that AA, it's amazing and it's brilliant. I know people who've gone to AA meetings and have felt that they had to exaggerate their story in order to feel that they were worthy of being there.
Yeah.
Like, and that's the problem is no one should have to exaggerate their story to feel like they can get help. You can decide to stop drinking at any point in your life. You don't have to be an alcoholic to decide that alcohol's not serving you anymore. But the problem with AA is there's an expectation that you're going to stand up in a room and say, I'm an alcoholic. And for people that do identify with that, great place for them. But for people who don't, but they still want to change their relationship with alcohol, where do they go?
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Okay, I'm just like hammering you with questions.
I don't mind. I'll go for it. I love it.
Tell us, you mentioned that there was alcohol was one of the 5 most addictive things. Compare it with some other things, because I think it's important for people listening to go, shit, that's not great.
Yeah. So
what are the other most addictive?
I think it's heroin, cocaine, tobacco, benzodiazepam, and oxytocin, OxyContin.
Are they painkillers?
Yeah. So there's 2 of them are prescription painkillers. 2 are illegal
narcotics.
Substances,
yeah,
and then tobacco. So just so you know, in 2019, a study was done that puts alcohol in the same carcinogenic category as tobacco. So you get the same cancer risk from drinking a bottle of wine a week as you do from smoking 10 cigarettes a week.
Wow, that's pretty full on.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, let me check my notes again. All right. You've got there's alcohol myths. We've busted a few already, right?
Yeah.
Tell us some more of your tell us some alcohol busting myths that you think would be helpful for people.
So number 1, we think that alcohol relieves anxiety and stress. And as I talked about before, it doesn't. We release cortisol when we drink alcohol, which makes us feel more stressed and anxious, if not at the time, then the next day. Number 2, so many of us are led to believe that a life without alcohol is boring. And do you know what? Like, when I look back at what my life was like when I was drinking, it was the same pattern, doing the same things, focusing on when my next alcohol hit was going to be. And my life has opened up so much since I stopped drinking, like immeasurably. And so it really, but here's the thing, right? You can sit on your sofa and drink a bottle of wine and you change your neurotransmitters, you get a dopamine hit and you release GABA, which makes you feel calm and relaxed in that moment. So you get a hit from just sitting on your bottom, watching a show, but drinking a bottle of wine. If you want to get that hit, you've got to do something that creates it yourself, and that takes effort. And alcohol makes us lazy. So alcohol makes us as a human race really lazy because we get that hit from not having to do much. So your life doesn't accidentally end up awesome. You have to take the initiative to create the life you want. And removing alcohol gave me that opportunity to do that. But there are 2 camps of people that remove alcohol. There are those that remove it and they hang on for dear life, white knuckling it, just wait until they can drink again, or it's only a matter of time till they drink again because they're not doing that deeper work. Or there's the people that go, right, I've removed alcohol, what am I adding in? So what am I doing to ensure I still get connection, I still get fun, I still get dopamine hits, I do stuff that I love, I've got stuff to look forward to. And it's really important, and that's what I coach with all of my ladies, is it's not just about taking out alcohol, it's so important that we look at what we're adding in.
Yeah, it's you actually can do so much more, right? Like
Yeah.
I've noticed in the last 12 months. Well, people say to me, what's it like not to drink? And I say, well, firstly, it's like freedom, because you're not thinking about it all the time. But like we went to we went to some friends on a Sunday for lunch, and in the past it would have been basically you've written off the rest of the day because you're pissed, so you go home, go, carry on drinking or whatever, and then you go to bed early, and that's your lot. But we had our few hours at lunch, and we went out, went home, and then we were still able to get about our day, wake up the next day. We've had a really nice social connection, as you said. Hasn't been any alcohol, so we feel great, and we can kick on during the week without feeling like we're in recovery mode. We went to a festival a few weeks ago, dancing, and doing all of the things sober. It was so good.
Yeah.
Because you go home and you feel great, and you've got all of that, you've had all of the things, but you don't feel like crap. And yeah, it's a really interesting phenomenon. I've been using that word a bit lately with a few of the things that I talk about. It's a phenomenon. It's another one that that society does say that we're missing out and we're boring.
Yeah.
And and it's almost like you get all of these negative things, like you're strict, or you're disciplined, or you've got so much control, like it's a bad thing. Yeah, really, really interesting stuff.
Yeah.
How does your life look like now? What does your life look like now compared to the days that you just went through the motions of life? I've seen you do some cold plunges.
Yes, I love cold water therapy.
Yeah.
Love it. And that's the thing, is what I've done over the last 3.5 years is I've created a toolkit of what are the things that are the foundations of my mental and physical well-being. And I know what they are now. And I can, because I'm not pissed all the time or hungover all the time, I can tune into myself, and I can recognize in my body, I'm starting to get stressed, so I need to do something. Whereas before I was just so disconnected that I wouldn't have listened, even if I'd felt like there was a little voice in me going, slow down, you're starting to get, there's too much going on, you need some time out. I just ignored that voice all the time. Whereas now I've learned to listen. And so I'm able to create the foundations of what's important to me, which is exercise, which is time with family, which is screen-free time, which is yoga and meditation and connection with people and doing something that interests me, and learning and listening and reading and trying new things. Like all of this stuff that I get to do, I can't even believe some of the stuff that I do each day. And I'm like, wow, who'd have thought that I'd be here doing this 3.5 years ago?
Had you ever done any of that stuff before, like meditation? No. My
meditation was a bottle of wine.
We got off on the tangent then, because we were busting myths. We got to number 2.
Yeah. So some of the other, I'll come back to this.
I'll take responsibility for that.
A couple of other myths then, that red wine is good for the heart.
Oh, yes.
Yes, let's just not even go there. There is, and again, that's just big alcohol trying to muddy the waters of what alcohol actually does to us. And on that, for every 10 grams of alcohol, 10 grams is a small glass of wine. For every 10 grams of alcohol, we increase our risk of breast cancer by between 4 and 13%.
For every 10 grams?
For every 1 glass.
Holy dooly.
I read something the other day that said up to 20% of breast cancer diagnoses in Australia are directly caused by alcohol.
Really? Wow. That's intense. Oh, just is...
So no, red wine is not good for the heart.
It's just extraordinary that it's a thing, isn't it, really?
Oh, so I saw an interview with a UK guy recently, and he said that if alcohol as a substance was created today, it would not get passed by any food standards agency. It just wouldn't be made legal in today's society.
Wow. Wow. It's just extraordinary. Like there's just, well, it goes back to money, doesn't it? Like people
Of course
making,
it does.
keep people
Big
making money
alcohol,
out of it.
and that ties in as well with, you know, talking about women. In the 2000s, the big alcohol industry, which is owned by, you know, 2 or 3 major companies, made a decision to deliberately target women. And in their doing so, we saw a steady increase in the number of women suffering cirrhosis, liver disease, and other alcohol-related cancers. And so when they deliberately started targeting women with all this pink gin and pink fizz and my mum wines, my mum needs wine because I whine, and I mean, I've seen Mother's Day cards that say, I'm the reason my mum drinks, and thanks for passing me the wine gene, mum. And it's astonishing.
Wow. How much of it, like you've been on this journey for a short amount of time, really, how much stuff is still coming to light for you? Like,
so much.
Yeah.
So much, because I feel like it's a movement that's growing steadily in terms of awareness. And when I first quit 3.5 years ago, there wasn't anything like the information or the support that is available now. So now we have got brilliant podcasts, brilliant books, lots of sober communities, and lots of people out loud going, like one lady that I interviewed in the sober community the other week, she said, I feel like it's the biggest scam of our lifetime is alcohol. That we've all just fallen for this scam, hook, line, and sinker, saying that we need to have alcohol to have fun, to create connection, to be successful, and all of this stuff. And when you remove the alcohol, so much of that stuff comes true.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole bunch of things that I could go on and rant about with the scam thing. Does your husband drink anymore? Did he ever drink?
So he and I were massive drinkers. And that was, you know, the biggest challenge for us, and something I coach so many of my ladies on is, how do you manage when you stop and your husband still drinks, and it's something that you used to do a lot together? So we were big party animals. And so when I stopped in 2017, he carried on drinking. But he was observing, and he was noticing, and he was watching. And by the time I actually stopped for good in 2019, he stopped too. So and I never thought he would do that, and I never asked him to do that. But he could see that his drinking, it shone a light on it when I wasn't drinking. It made him realize how dysfunctional his drinking was, because we had been drinking, you know, ridiculous amounts. And he tried moderation, and similar to me, doesn't work. And so it was easier to say none than it was to say one.
Yeah. My husband has stopped. He said he might, he can just, well, he can just have a beer, but he hasn't had anything for a while. I wonder if he said he might continue at some stage, but at this stage he hasn't for a few months. Is there anything that you get FOMO, or did get FOMO about, like going to a party? Or for me, like I haven't done it, and for a while, like I kind of avoided social situations that might like make it difficult, and I'm all right with it now. But wine tasting, like that was a big thing that we loved doing, going traveling in Australia and visiting vineyards. We won't be doing that anymore, but like there's a little part of me that goes, oh, that would be nice.
Yeah,
do you get any of those? Do you get any of those?
Yes and no. Like I just have a little laugh at myself, really, because I live near, you know, we're in Perth, and so we've got Margaret River just down the road with all the vineyards, and I go there loads. And I just have a little laugh at myself, and I'm like, yeah, I used to go and do all the wine tastings, and I used to just sit there going, oh, it's got, you know, aromas of blueberries, and I thought I was this
this one tastes like chocolate.
Yeah, or whatever. But you know what? Like I've just got back from a girlfriend's 50th for this weekend, and 6 of us had hired a house in the Swan Valley. We went to a winery for lunch. They all got pissed. I was the driver. Like it just doesn't bother me at all. Like I am still me. They still love me for who who I am. And we big belly laughs. We felt great, and I felt slightly smug on Sunday morning when I got up and we're sat up watching the birds on the balcony, and they came out clutching their heads, feeling like crap, going, "Yeah, you might be right about this sober thing." But I was the last to go to bed. Like, I was still up with them. Like, it's only missing out if either you're with people that you can't be your authentic self with, and so you needed to drink to feel like you had to fit in, or if you have some kind of social anxiety. Like, lots of my ladies remove alcohol and they discover that they're actually introverts and that they hate big social occasions, and it's like, but that's okay. So now you know this about yourself. So now, instead of putting your poor introverted self into these big parties, you just don't do those things anymore. And you do small catch-ups, and you do one-on-one catch-ups, and you do the things that you love doing.
How have your friends in general reacted to your massive turnaround?
Look, it took time.
And family.
It took time, because when you've got your whole identity as being, you know, someone that drinks a lot, it's, people don't know how to be around you, and sometimes people can hurt you, but unintentionally. So sometimes if they were doing something at the beginning, they didn't invite me, not because they didn't want me there, but they probably thought, A, well, Sarah's not going to want to come because we'll all be getting drunk, and B, they probably felt judged in some way if I was there not drinking. So I then would say to them, I still want to come, and I'm probably going to leave after a couple of hours, but please still invite me. I'm still me. I can still bring my alcohol-free champagne, and I can sit with you and have a few drinks. But it's, you know, it's so important that we keep connection. Yeah,
definitely. Now, speaking of non-alcoholic beverages, you've just mentioned non-alcoholic champagne. How do you feel about it? Because there's part of me, like, I work with habits and behavior with the people I work with, and like, it's obviously that non-alcoholic drinks are a great tool, but like, is there a line where, do you know what I mean, that needs to be drawn, where someone's just replacing it with something else, and they're not actually getting to the depths of what they want the drink for? Do you know what I mean?
Yes and no. Like, I've got many ladies who've got sober by using alcohol-free drinks.
Right.
And at the beginning, they leaned on them heavily and then slowly weaned themselves off, but it was what really helped. And I say to lots of my ladies, particularly Friday night, Friday is always the really tricky night, keep the ritual, change the ingredient.
Right.
So if you've always had a glass of champagne or Prosecco or whatever at 5 o'clock on a Friday, get yourself a really nice alcohol-free champagne, and have that. And for me, that scratches the itch completely. Like, I don't drink alcohol-free drinks a huge amount, but if I'm socializing, if I'm going to a barbecue, because sometimes I don't just want water, and I don't really have sugar, so I don't want to have I'm not 5 either. I don't want an orange juice, you know. Like, my husband did laugh. We went out to a restaurant the other day, and he came back and he went, well, these are your options. You can have a Sprite, a Fanta, a Coke, or a fire engine. And I was like, oh, give me the fire engine any day. Like, what is that? Like strawberry syrup, orange syrup, and lemonade or something. Yeah. I was just like, do I look 7? So it is nice to have an alcohol-free drink. Some of them are disgusting. Some of them are amazing. And I still have a palate that enjoys a more grown-up tasting drink.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, I think that's a good tip. I like that. The change the ingredient. Yeah. All right, we're getting close to the end of our time together, and so, you know, you've talked lovingly about your ladies. Is that what you call them? Your
ladies. Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
All 12,000 of them.
Yeah, all 12,000 of them. How do you work with your ladies, and how would you? Okay, step back, Nadine. What would be some steps that you would recommend someone take if they want to explore giving up alcohol? Do you use special words? Do you say giving up? Do you say stopping?
I say experimenting with alcohol free. Because
Yeah.
I don't like to think of it as we're giving up something, because we actually gain so much.
And it
I
feels
don't really like
like
the word sober, because it sounds so like dull and boring. So I'm choosing to live my life alcohol free, is how I like to say it. So I think join the free community, the Women's Wellbeing Collective, because it's really just so good to see that you're not alone and see other people's stories. The most successful way to work with me is to join one of my challenges, because the vibe in these challenges and in these private groups is just insane. So at the moment, I'm doing a Sober October I've got 300 ladies in there who are all supporting each other, connecting with each other. I do a talk every day. They get a guest expert interview. They get tons of resources. They have to stick their hand up every single morning and go, yeah, I didn't drink last night. And they really, really love support and connect with each other. So those challenges run 4 times a year, and they're brilliant. And then the other ways that I work with my clients, I then do a coaching program called Rediscovering Me, which is, well, who the hell am I if I don't drink anymore? Because removing alcohol is just the tip of the iceberg. It's then about peeling back the layers of going, well, who am I? What do I like doing? What lights me up? Who are the people in my life that I love spending time with, and who drains me? And am I doing the job that I really want to do, or would I like to add something in? Where's my creative outlet? Like, we do lots and lots of self-discovery over the 8 weeks together, so that we can get to the heart of who we really are without alcohol.
Great. And and that's all online, is it?
Yeah, so all online. And then for anyone in Perth, I have a meetup group, Perth Sober Socials.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I think I saw on socials in the group that did you just go back to the UK recently?
Yeah, I went back in July.
Did you start a group over there? Do you have people over there that you've worked with that you met up with?
Yeah, I've got loads. So we did a meetup when I was over there. Yeah.
Oh, that's so nice.
Yeah.
And what are your aspirations for the future with the Women's Wellbeing Collective, the coaching you're doing, the message that you're sharing with people? What is your vision for where this is going to go? Do you want to start your own team of coaches? Like, do you want to, do you have any vision? Retreats? What?
I want to do it all. I just,
okay.
I'm very, not a single day feels like work to me.
Yeah.
Every single day I feel so blessed and so lucky to be able to say that. I am moving into the corporate space. So I've just run a alcohol-free challenge for a large mining company. And the reason I'm doing this is because, again, I've got a client, a male client who's a lawyer, and every single week we have to sit and go through his diary and look at all the social events that he's got coming up and discuss what excuses he's going to make as to why he's not drinking. Because it's still so expected in so many industries that would be that you would turn up and you would drink alcohol. There's still so many Christmas parties where there's no alcohol-free options provided. There's still so much pressure. Why don't you come down the pub on a Friday night? Like, there's still all of that. So, and also so many people who are highly stressed in the workplace are using alcohol to manage their stress without realizing that it's not doing that at all. So corporate well-being is something I'm really passionate about. And the other thing I'm really passionate about that I'd love to see me doing in the future is talking to schools. So being able to, and again, it's not about saying don't drink, but it's about sharing some of the information that was never made available to me.
I am going to ask you very briefly, because I am aware that that was kind of like the close. But just in terms of the young people, how much compared to when we were at school, and I know we were like in the UK, so I'm not sure culturally how it differs here. But do you think the tides are turning with young people? Like with smoking, you don't see as many young people smoking as you did when we were at school, assuming you're around the same age as me. I'm a little bit older than you, I think. But do you think the tides are turning with alcohol, or do you think it's still very prevalent?
I think it is turning a bit, and I think that there's a few reasons for that. I think social media, people don't want to lose control and then have it pictured all over. Like, thank God there was no social media in my day. Oh my God, I dread to think about some of the pictures that might have ended up on social media of me. So I do think that plays a part, because I find that lots of young people, they're very body conscious and health conscious. And that's not always a good thing, talking about body positivity and being body conscious, but they are aware and they don't want to do that. I do think that there's more education and information coming out as well. So people are just more aware of the fact that alcohol causes cancer. And we can start to see through all this rubbish that comes out. Oh, it's good for your heart and this, that, and the other. Like, it's just all not true. And so when we can start to dispel these myths and talk about it more openly, it's only going to have more information, because, as you said earlier, knowledge is power.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing story. And like, I bet you can't even, you have to pinch yourself.
Totally. Totally.
Like, wow. What a brilliant story. I love it. And like, just great work. I recommend anyone, women probably especially, join your Facebook group, Women's Wellbeing Collective. It's a really supportive community. And yeah, look, I think anyone who does a challenge, right? Like, you start with your 30 days or your 21 days like you and I did, and then you see where it takes you. But it's highly recommended to do that. And what better person to do it with than you as their guide. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. I'll pop all your info in the notes for the podcast. And yeah, thank you. Thanks for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
No worries.